Welcome to the Small Giants Fishbowl. This topic is Win the War for Talent with one word. How understanding that love is a work made visible will help you retain your best people. Through the experience of being fired as a CEO of his own company, Jay Wilkinson learned the importance of showing his employees that he cares. By making them feel loved, being vulnerable, and including them in important decisions, his employees remain loyal despite being asked to work longer hours and take massive pay cuts. During his leadership journey, Jay learned that the word love needs to be used more often in business. Okay, here we go.
Welcome everyone to this session. I'm really excited to share my story and the story of FireSpring with you today. We have a lot to cover, so I'm going to jump right in and start by sharing the genesis of what I'm about to share with you comes from an experience that I had back in 2002 that was by far the most frustrating, the darkest time for me in business. Aside from my mother passing away in 2011, may have been one of the most difficult things that I've ever endured. It was when I actually was fired as the CEO of my own company. And I'm going to share my desktop here with you and walk you through a few things. This happened again in 2002. And rather than just jump right in from there, I'm going to actually give you a bit more of the story behind it. Because fast forward to today, we're just a few years ago, in 2016, we were featured in Inc. magazine as one of the 50 best places to work in America. And we've been listed on the Inc. 5000 7 out of the last 9 years. So you see that and you think, oh, wow, you guys are killing it. You're doing a great job. And the truth of the matter is it has been a long journey. It's been an awful lot of work. And I'm going to fill in the gaps between from the time that I was literally ousted as the CEO of my own company to the point in time where we have a celebrated culture and we are really focused in really interesting ways on building a culture around a deep, caring attitude. I'm going to go back and kind of share with you how that journey happened. It's a little bit easier now when you're in the middle of it. It's hard to see through the thick forest when you're kind of dropped down in the middle of it. But I'm going to go back to the very beginning, and that happened in early 2001, right around in there. We had been building up a great business. And I had learned and cut my chops from, like most entrepreneurs, by mowing lawns. And in high school, I was fortunate enough to have been elected to the student council. I grew up in central Nebraska in farm and ranch country and moved into the big city to try to cut my wild oats as a teenager, and a town of 20,000 people. And I was elected to our student council. And in my student council, in order to serve after my sophomore year when I was elected, to serve my junior year, I had to go to leadership camp, which sounded like the absolute worst possible thing I could do as a high school student. It just sounded horrible. But I got thrust into this camp, and it ended up being the best thing that happened in my life up to that point. It actually changed the direction of my life. In the room that my little group of students were gathered in, there was a sign that said, "I expect to pass through this world but once. Any good, therefore, that I could do, or any kindness I can show, let me do it now. Let me not defer or neglect it, for I shall not pass this way again." And so I had this entrepreneurial tendency, and now I had this thing kind of instilled into me so thankfully at the age of 15, this notion of servant leadership, this notion that we're on this earth to do good in the world, and the time to do it is now. And so I went on about my career. I had several businesses. I finally hit my stride when I launched a company called Campus Connection with a couple of really good friends of mine. We were in Weehawken, New Jersey, right across the spot where Aaron Burr fired the famous shot against Alexander Hamilton. And our company, Campus Connection, grew rapidly. We had 350 locations. all across the United States, a distribution of 1.2 million. And things were flying high, but I wanted my son to grow up on grass instead of concrete. So I moved back to Lincoln, Nebraska, and opened a printing company. It was a franchise called Alpha Graphics. And then fast forward a few more years, in the mid-90s, Al Gore invented the internet. Thank you so much, Al. I can't tell you how much I appreciate the contribution you've made to society. But when the internet came about in 95, 96, I launched a division of the printing company called Level 100 Communications. And that's the division that has now become what FireSpring is today. And we were most known back in the day because we landed the Backstreet Boys website account for the Backstreet Boys band. It was what put us on the map. We had the opportunity to bring together all kinds of businesses around the region and show them this great work we're doing. And you got to keep in mind, in 95, 96, the internet was really new. There weren't a lot of businesses online yet. By the year 97, 98, pretty much every business had some kind of landing page or something up, but it was still really new. And I remember the thing that I was thinking about more than anything else as we were starting up this division, which became FireSpring, that I was just hoping that nobody ever came to visit us. We were literally in the basement of the print shop that I owned. And if we would have hired somebody, say 6'4" or higher, we wouldn't have allowed them to come into the building because they would have impaled their head on a nail. It was to half dirt floors. It was just ridiculously simple and basic. And we just were hoping that no one would ever come and visit us. So every time we had an opportunity to meet with a business, we would ask, hey, we'll come to you, or let's meet at a coffee shop or go somewhere else. So to share the backstory with you a little bit behind this, I think it's important to know that the opportunities that were going on back in those days in 2000 and 2001 were quite a bit different than they are now. Many of us may have been around. You remember that the bubble was growing. It had not yet burst. The valuations for businesses were incredibly high. And we realized that we had something really big. We had invented or created this content management system platform that made it really simple for other print shops throughout the United States. And at that point in time, there were about 35,000 of them. And we built this really simple software as a service tool called Printer Presence. And we started offering a turnkey website opportunity for print shops. Within a year, we had over 1,000 clients paying us a monthly fee to run and maintain their website. So it was really starting to grow. We knew that there were other markets, other opportunities for this as well. And so we needed to grow. And in order to do that, we knew we had to raise money. So we started courting venture capitalists, which was a really interesting thing back in those days. I went to Silicon Valley and marched up and down Page Mill Road and all around where the VCs are. We went to Austin, Texas, and went to Boulder, Colorado. We had several offers come in, and the thing that was in common with the people that were interested in funding us was that they all wanted us to move to either San Francisco, Austin, or in one case, Boston and Boulder, Colorado. They wanted us to move, and we weren't ready to do that. I talked to our core team, the engineers that were building our technology, and we knew that we could do this here in Nebraska, and we decided to hunker down and stay. And we found a new venture capital firm. They had never invested in another company before. It was just a group of people that had put something together. And we ended up raising a couple $1 million. And I will never forget the day when I logged into our bank account and saw more than $1 million sitting there in the bank account, thinking like, holy mackerel, I've never seen that much money all in one place. And I wasn't really lackadaisical about how we spent the money, but we went all in. I hired people in 10 cities around the United States. We started to grow rapidly. The first thing I remember about the venture capitalists that I brought on was that when you're dealing with other people's money, OPM, everything changes. All of the sudden, instead of making decisions with my leadership team and the people close to our business, I had to consult other people every time we would make a decision around something, and they always had a different opinion or a varying opinion on how things should work. And it started to happen really early on. So this all happened in early 2001. Now, I'm sure everyone participating in this session today remembers what happened on 9/11 in 2001. It completely changed the way that the world was acting and reacting. And in the business world where we were focused, it just completely put us on our ear. For whatever reason, even though this shouldn't be the case, most businesses, when they're struggling financially or when they hit a downturn and people aren't buying or paying as much as they might have, most businesses, one of the first things they'll cut is their marketing budget. And websites at that time fit into their marketing budget. So all of a sudden, where we were closing 3 out of every 4 demos we were doing up front in the beginning, all of a sudden within a couple of months after 9/11, we couldn't even get appointments with people. And those appointments that we did get, we would close 1 out of 10 because people were on their heels. And we just started going down fast. And I made a lot of mistakes during that time frame. Probably the most important of which is what I should have done for everyone in our business is I should have reduced our labor faster, but I didn't. I had this thing about laying people off because the markets weren't working the way they had been even 6 months earlier. And I got into some battles with our board of directors. And one of the biggest mistakes that I made when I structured our company back in those days, and I've learned a lot since then, and I still have a lot yet to learn, but this was a big lesson, that even though I owned the majority of this business, I had given the voting power on my board over to these venture capitalists because they were really smart, amazing people, and they'd been around the block, and I wanted their input and opinions. And so on a 4-3 vote, and I was one of those, there were 7 members of the board, me included, but on a 4-3 vote, my board came together and they fired me in my role as CEO and asked me to serve on a management committee with a group of other VCs and team members to help guide the company moving forward. And I will never forget the feeling that I had when I felt like I had lost everything that I had been trying to build for so many years. I pulled a lot of our key people together, and I leaned really heavily on them. I explained to them, look, guys, I've been fired as the CEO. We've got to figure something out. And then what happened next, over the course of the next 6 months, is the time frame in my business career that has shaped everything that I process and every belief that I have around business. It started by having our team members come to me, and even though I wasn't officially the CEO, I was still having conversations with them, trying to figure out what we were going to do. And the first thing that I did is I networked and found other friends and family. You know the expression when you're looking for investors, look for friends, family, and fools. I found all 3 of those. I got people together, and the biggest help in all of this was my brother and my father. My brother was an entrepreneur and business person, still is, but at that point in time, he was developing real estate in Nebraska, in and around the area where I grew up. And he had to essentially mortgage a property that he had just recently purchased, that he was ready to develop, turn his world upside down to come and came up with money by reorganizing and refinancing some things. Went to other friends and family that were connected to our employees, and we rallied together, and we were able to come up with enough money to buy out the venture capitalists, to essentially get them to leave the business. That took a couple of months to do that. And I remember at the end of that process, my accountant still pokes fun at me to this day for this, but when we wrote the last check to the VC firm, I added 1 penny onto it because I didn't want anyone ever to say that they had invested in something that I did and didn't have a return on their investment. So we talked about that with our team, but we sat down and here's what we decided. Every single person on the team took a 50% pay cut, just reduced their compensation. In addition to that, another quarter or so, about 25% of our team was able to defer most, if not all, of their additional compensation. If they had a spouse that worked somewhere else, that they had enough income coming in that they could pay their rent or put food on the table, whatever they needed to do, our team member came together and they decided they wanted to do this. It was up to them, and we had people offering spare rooms in their houses for some of our younger single employees, so they wouldn't have to pay rent, where they would have a place to stay free. I mean, it just went on and on. The commitment that they had to making our business work was incredibly humbling and incredibly inspiring. And we finally crawled out of this hole. It took a long time, but working together over the course of it took about 18 months to 2 years to fully pay back every one of those employees for the sacrifices that they made. But we didn't lose a single person during that time frame. We rallied together, and we're all in this together mentality and attitude. And it cemented and created a culture of our company, again, that puts love at the center of everything. And it's something that I'm going to be talking quite a bit more about today, because I think really thinking about love at the center of everything that we do is really important. So a little bit about FireSpring today, just to make sure that y'all know who we are and how FireSpring is organized today. We provide marketing, printing, software, and strategic guidance to companies in all 50 states. We have somewhere around 10,000 customers in all 14 countries as well. And we are both a marketing agency, which is our focus as a company, and a software as a service business. I mentioned that earlier. Today, we serve mostly nonprofit organizations through the software and the tools that we provide. And you'll see more why here as I share with you kind of how we've evolved as an organization. Our marketing agency focuses on companies that exist more for their why than their what. We like to say we help companies and nonprofits activate their purpose, to engage their audience and increase retention and build communities of influence that are rabid fans of their brand, their business, whatever. That's our focus. And in the process of working with these companies that either operate more on their why than their what, which are the companies that we love to work with, we learned pretty quickly that in order to help many of them, we had to kind of pivot a little bit. And so we now refer to ourselves as the world's first inside-out agency, where we help both from the outside in create these customers and build these amazing brands, but we also work with leadership teams from the inside out to help them align their leadership team around the 8 questions that every single business must ask in order for them to be effective and successful. So we help them both from the outside in and from the inside out. And the bottom line is we are a workplace where every single person feels important, they feel included, and they feel love. And I'm going to share with you just real briefly, because I get a lot of interesting feedback when I talk about love as it relates to business, all this touchy-feely stuff. There are 2 types of love. There's passionate love and there's compassionate love. And passionate love is the type of love we often refer to as romantic love. It's the kind of love, that we have for loved ones in our lives. It's characterized by things like a deep emotional connection. You never stop thinking about this person. There's a strong physical attraction. That's dangerous when it comes to a business, right? We know this. But a compassionate love is about 3 things, and it's really simple. It's about commitment, it's about intimacy, and it's about trust. So mutual sharing of feelings and concerns is what intimacy is all about. And it's about feeling like you're connected, and you can hang with these people, and that they will have your backs in whatever happens. There's a strong argument that people want to be part of something where there's compassion and compassionate approaches to the way that they connect with one another, no question. There's a lot of stuff out in the world. Diana Rabb writes for Psychology Today. She wrote an article recently, 7 ways to express your love. And this had nothing to do with company culture or companies, by the way. This is really about expressing your love to the people in your friend and family circle. And the 7 things that she talks about: listen, say please and thank you, tell your loved ones how much you love and appreciate them, offer to help, write a letter or send a card, write your loved ones a poem of gratitude, and practice the art of forgiveness. Okay, now, I know the poem would be a little creepy if you started writing poems to people in the workplace. So aside from number 6 on this list, I can't think of a better list of a way to express the way you feel about your coworkers, about making people around you feel valued, appreciated, to help them when they need help, to forgive them when they need to be forgiven, to be vulnerable, listen. All of these things are things that would make an incredibly powerful workplace. And there's no question that employees who feel love at work, they perform better. I think most companies, including ours at one time, focus a lot on their cognitive culture, which is really about values and their mission, your results, innovation, things like that. But I believe that it's time for every business to start thinking more about its emotional culture and cultivating a culture. And emotional cultures can be built around joy. They can be built around love, of course, which is the thing that we're focused on. They can be built around pride. There are lots of different ways you can build an emotional culture in an organization. And I think it's a more powerful way to think about building culture. And one of my favorite homeboys up the street here in Nebraska, Warren Buffett, he says, so of course, if Warren says it, it's true. It's important that you love your job. Well, Warren also went on to say, taking job to build up your resume is the same as saving up sex for old age. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. So I'm encouraging every young person I come across to focus on finding a company of culture. I believe that in 10 years' time, and I would assume that many people here today, part of this conversation, you've been around the block a few times as it relates to culture and company, et cetera. I'm going to say that in 10 years' time, a business that doesn't focus on building its culture intentionally to make sure that it feels like a really great, safe, awesome space to be in and a great thing to be part of, those companies won't be around in 10 years. The old days of building companies with type A leadership, where it's my way or the highway, or get on board, or we're moving on without you, those kind of cultures, people won't want to buy products and services from them, and employees won't want to work for those. So I think it's really important that we talk about this, and we talk about it as a journey, not a destination. We have so much to learn at FireSpring. We talk about this incessantly with our team. There's so much room to grow and room yet to go. And I'm going to share this with you because I think it is the single best definition of company culture that I've ever seen. Although Maya Angelou certainly wasn't thinking about a company's culture when she said these words, but there is no better definition of a culture. I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And I'm a huge fanboy of Maya Angelou. I think she's the most prolific American writer and thought leader of at least of my lifetime, the last several years. And I can't imagine that any business that makes people feel this way won't be able to ascend and create opportunity for people in their businesses that just is off the charts. So I'm going to share a little bit of our journey and my journey around this with you. I'm a big believer in the Gestalt theory of learning, which means that we learn better from shared experience. If someone will share their results, their ideas, their stories with us, we can learn from that. And it's far better than anyone telling us this is what you should do, because most of us just kind of turn the other way don't pay attention to those people. So I'm going to share the beginning of our journey and just walk you through this process of how we discovered our path to purpose and our culture. And you can glean from it what you will. My father taught me a long time ago the power of R&D, which he said stands for rip off and duplicate. So when I started that Alpha Graphics business back in the early 90s, I got in a car and I drove west and I drove east. I literally visited more than 100 other stores in that system and asked them, hey, what did you do to become successful? What's the biggest mistake you made? If you could go back to the beginning and do anything over, what would you do differently? So I share this with you in the spirit of giving you some thoughts and ideas about how you might be able to take some of these. But the beginning goes back to that photo I shared earlier when I was going to this leadership camp in my teens when I was 15, 16 years old. And this sign I took off the wall of that classroom, and it's literally been on the wall in my closet or in my office or next to my mirror in my bathroom. It's been somewhere in my view my entire adult life. And I remember there was a day, this happened in 2013, and it was actually near Thanksgiving because I was having a conversation with my father. My father is my mentor, my role model, the most amazing man. I'm so incredibly fortunate to have had a father that has done so much to form me as his offspring and someone to look up to. And I was thinking at the time that I wanted to do something to honor my dad. I'd always had this thought in the back of my head that someday I'm going to build this business up enough where I'm going to have the means, the financial means to do something substantial. Maybe build a park and name it after him, or a hospital wing or whatever. And so I was digging in and I was asking my dad some questions over Thanksgiving in 2013 about what he wanted his legacy to be. And he was like fishing, and he caught on to what I was doing, and he's, why are you asking me these questions? I don't care about a hospital wing or anything like that. All I care about is that my children and my grandchildren have happy lives. They're with people they love, and they're contributing to society in an amazing way. And I remember coming back to my bathroom, and this sign was still hanging on the mirror there, and seeing the words "do it now" just jump off the page at me. And I decided that everything has to change with the way that our business operates. So we became Nebraska's first certified B Corporation. I had this conversation with our leadership team. I came back from my conversation with my father, and many of you may identify this look. It's that look of like the deer in the headlights, terrified look. That's the look that my leadership team had in our first meeting after I came back, because it was like, oh shit, Jay just went to a conference and now everything's going to change. We've all probably seen that look before. I came back and I said, we're going to do something different. We started exploring. We became the first certified B Corporation in Nebraska. So we made a commitment to being part of this movement that's changing the way people see business, that all business should be conducted as if people and place matter, and that through our products, our practices, our profits, we should aspire to do no harm and to benefit all. This is the Declaration of Interdependence that all B Corps sign. And Firespring became a B Corporation. Our purpose evolved. Prior to that, I realized we never really had a stated purpose. If we had, it would have been like maximize shareholder value or something really lame like that. And we decided to put in writing that our purpose is now to leverage our people, our products, and our profit to do more good. And we do that through our Power of Three program, where we give away 1% of our top line revenue. We take our top line revenue and give it back to nonprofit organizations, mostly in Lincoln and Omaha, where our employees live, work, and play. 2% of our products. We do that by giving in-kind products and services, and then 3% of our people. So this is a requirement, not an option, a requirement that every member of our team, we have around 200 employees in our company, and every one of them volunteers one full day every month. They go out into the community and pick the nonprofit that most aligns with their personal values, their personal mission, which I think is really important. We don't tell them what they should, volunteer for. They go out and do it on their own. If you do the math on that, it's a little more than 3% of their time. This is something that is a way for them to, to share the love of their whatever they do, whether they're a programmer, or they can go in and help with marketing stuff, or whatever their role and their skill set is at FireSpring. They have the ability to go in and help. It's been a really awesome thing. It's grown fast. I'll share that with you here in just a few minutes. But the biggest thing that we did in Lincoln initially, as a result of this new charge, is we seed funded an organization called Nonprofit Hub. We actually donated this building to this organization. It's a 15,000 square foot space where they have a collaborative workspace now. There are more than 100 nonprofit organizations that now call this space home. They have collaborative meetings and opportunities to network and come together. We bring in accountants and legal help so that we can help these nonprofits find more affordable, better ways to achieve their missions. And the most recent thing that I'm most excited about, on the ground floor of this building, they just launched under the brand name Foundry a community-owned coffee shop. So this coffee shop, they have beer, wine, they serve food, they serve coffee, and the coffee is amazing, by the way. It wasn't just like, let's buy some coffee from the local food distributor. One of the guys on the committee was a former coffee sourcer by trade and profession, and he has actually created the most amazing coffee that I've ever had. It's been his life's dream to be able to come up with his own blend, and he's done this for more than 100 companies around the world before. But this company, this nonprofit coffee shop, every single dollar of profit that is made, every penny is given back to the community. So within a year, they expect to be generating around $10,000 to $15,000 a year in excess profits that are going back to 12 different nonprofits, because every month the community, the customers of the shop, will get to vote on which nonprofit should receive the proceeds from that month's profits. It's really cool. So it's a way to create this perpetual cycle of doing more good through the community. So as I stand back and look back on what we've done at FireSpring to build this culture of love, there are three things that stand out, three ways and three steps that we went through. And that's what I'm going to share with you really quickly. And I think most of you probably already know this concept around discovers are not something that you determine. You don't choose your values as much as your values choose you. You have to discover what's already there. And these values are the guiding principles of any organization. Once our values are clear, decisions become really easy. So there are all kinds of values that I see with different companies. You may have some of these, or at least some of these words in your value statements, things like respect, integrity, communication, excellence. These are all great words and great things. I can't imagine why anyone wouldn't value any of these things, but that's kind of the point. They're pretty bland. They're pretty generic. In fact, these aren't even values. These are virtues. And these are the exact values: respect, integrity, communication, and excellence. These are the exact values that hung in the lobby at Enron Corporation on the day that the regulators came in and handcuffed their CEO and took them out to put him in prison for ethics violations. So many companies have values hanging on their wall, and they're meaningless. They mean nothing. So I'm going to give you a little bit of an idea. No matter where you are in the journey on your values in your company, in the purpose of your business, this is an exercise you can do to really hone in and get an understanding of how to find values that are really effective. I call it the reality show exercise. And this is the way we did it. We did this for the first time. I think we had around 50 employees at the time. We brought everybody in and set them in a big circle. And the circle was broken by a whiteboard. And we said, all right, everybody write down on a little card that we passed around, a little note card, write down the names of 3 people who are going to be on a new reality show. This reality show is going to follow them around everywhere they go at work and record their conversations and record their interactions and with both customers and employees. So choose wisely. We want to pick 3 people that are going to be really great representation for us as a company. They would write the names down on the cards. And then we went back around a second time and said, okay, now that you've written those names down, go back and write down the attributes, the word or a short phrase that made you choose those people. What is it about them that made you choose them? Write down words that describe them or attributes about them that you admire and you value. And they would write those words down. And then we went around the circle and had every single person in the room add what was on their card up to the whiteboard. And then, of course, as we went around, there may be a few that were left out. We thanked everybody very much. They went on about their day, and the leadership team stayed behind, and we did the combined kill keep exercise where we took them and grouped them, and we ended up with a list of 2025. And then from there, it's a simple process to take those, to distill them down into what our team members value the most. If you're interested in a step-by-step process of how to conduct that exercise, I'm more than happy to send it to you. We'll give you instructions at the end here how to reach out to me and connect with, but I can share with you the detailed description of how to go through that process. I personally believe that every company, regardless of how entrenched and how long we've been around, how good or not so good we think we are with our values and our journey, I think that every company, every 5 years should do an exercise like this to kind of revisit where we stand. And then we run those values through this test. Is it distinguished? Are we obsessed with it? Will it outlive us? Would we sacrifice money to protect it? And can we actually live that value every day? That's the most important one of all. As soon as it fits all of those tests, then we can move on. Our values are these 3 things. I'm going to move through these quickly. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these. I could spend the entire session just on explaining the depth and breadth of how we approach these values, but our values are simple. Bring it every day. Number 2, have each other's back. It's not just about our team members, but about our customers and our vendors and everyone within our ecosystem. And then number 3, give a shit. I will tell you that this value was tough for me initially. We work with a lot of nonprofit organizations, and a lot of nonprofits have kind of religious affiliations, and I envisioned my little 4'9", my grade school principal. Her name was Ida Hastings. And I once said this word on the playground and got sent to her office in like the 3rd grade. And I'll never forget the fear that she instilled in me around this word. So that fear came back up when our team was suggesting this is the way we should express this particular attitude. But I'm so grateful for them that they talked me into it, because people know what it means to live this value. Our value should be expressed in a way that we know what it means to live that value. And people that live at the epicenter of living the values of any organization are the people that are going to really slay it and bring the highest level of results for any company. And then we have our Fire Spring promise. We value people above profit. If we take great care of our people will take great care of our clients. We are obsessed with our client success. Each and every client has the capacity to change the world. And this is where it gets, I get asked a lot from friends of mine, people that I'm connected with in business, who think that, all this stuff that you guys do, it would never work for our company. We believe in making money over here. We have to make a profit. And this is the part where we are all capitalistic. The more clients we have, the more impact we make. We are unapologetically focused on raising the profitability and the growth of our business so that we can make more impact. I think that's really important to think about. All right, the second major thing, once we discovered our values, we hired to them. And like most people today, I'm assuming that most everybody participating today has an approach where you hire first for culture fit, second for skill fit, because you cannot change someone once you hired them. If anyone has ever tried to change a human, you know what I'm talking about. If you're married and you try to change your spouse, probably not going to have you could change spouse A for spouse B. You can do that. But I think it's really impossible to change someone after you've started a relationship with them. So we need to hire people who are already aligned to our values. And so we find lots of ways that people express their love and devotion for wanting to work here through Twitter and Instagram and other places. I'm a huge believer in interns. I think every company should have interns, paid internships. I don't necessarily believe in having them come work for free, but for just, 10, 15 bucks an hour, depending on where you are in the country, you can bring in a group of people that make a lot of impact in your organization and expose them to our culture. We have probably 10% of our entire workforce are people that interned here at one point in time in either high school or college. And as part of the hiring process, you also have to talk about the firing process. I think it's critically important that we focus on transitions outside of a business that live up to the values. One of our values is have each other's back, and that value extends long beyond that employee has worked here. One of the greatest, one of the things I take the most pride in is I have a file folder that mostly came as emails, so I printed them out and I actually put them in a folder of messages and emails that I've received from former employees who have been fired from FireSpring, expressing their appreciation for the opportunity to learn and grow here. I find that really fulfilling to know that we can part ways with someone and they still feel the need to express their gratitude and appreciation for what they've learned along the way. And to that end, one of the things that we're working on fervently here at FireSpring is to bring an end to the 2-week notice. We have conversations going on constantly with every team member, understanding where they are at any given time and how they feel about their job, how they're contributing in their role. Are things going well? We have these conversations constantly. So when someone is feeling like, it's time to start looking, here's the thing. We have never, ever, ever, when someone has come and said, I think that this isn't doing what it used to be, or it's not as fulfilling as it once was, or I'm not able to make enough money, or I'm not able to do the kind of work that I want to do because there's just no other opportunities here, whatever it might be. If we can't find a way to move them around or help them find more fulfillment in their role here, we'll help them find their next job. We tell them, we want you to schedule your interviews, go out on your job interviews, let us know how it goes. Yes, they're being paid to go on job interviews. We help them transition out. And I could give you a lot more stuff behind this because there's so much to it, but it's really important that people trust our company and trust their manager enough to have these conversations rather than just walk in one day and say, here's my 2-week notice, because that's so disruptive to any company. And then the last thing is living our values. So here's how we live our values. We do it by reminding everybody constantly. It's about repetition. They say it takes 7 repetitions of anything in order to be able to fully ingrain in something. So we have a daily meeting. We pull everybody in our entire company together. We have people in person and then also through the cameras for our remote team members. And we have a daily meeting at 11:11. We've been doing this for nearly 12 years. Every single business day. The meeting never lasts longer than 11 minutes. And what we do is we call each other out. We recognize each other for living our values by writing their names up on the board. I want to put Darren's name on the board because he did this or that. I want to make sure Craig's on the board because he had my back yesterday by doing this. We're constantly reinforcing the values of our company by recognizing team members for living them. And then once a quarter, we induct 3 new people into our Values Hall of Fame. We have an all-team meeting where we bring everybody together, and 3 people are inducted into the Values Hall of Fame, and we tell the story as to why they're being inducted, what they did to be inducted. And at the end of every year, we have our yearbook. We call it our Powered by Purpose book. This is the cover of the 2017 version. The 2018 version is going to be coming out here in the next few weeks here at FireSpring. But the values book includes the stories of every one of those 12 people who were inducted into the Values Hall of Fame. So there's a big full-page spread. We include lots of other really great things around telling the stories behind the values that people are living in our company. That's so important that people understand. Imagine how much easier it is for an onboarding team member to know what it means to live the values of a company, to be able to open a book and read stories of real people who have lived those values. Then we have a culture club, and it's headed by our honorary boy, George, who leads the culture club. These are people who are elected from different parts of our business to come together and help us make decisions around the company. It's not just a party planning committee. I want to be clear about that. These are people that are helping us decide things like, insurance. Do we want to pay a higher premium and have better benefits or a lower premium? You got to balance this stuff all the time. So what isn't workplace culture? Again, it's not a party planning committee, and it's not about having an amazing break room with a keg and drinks and free food, or a ping pong table or a pool table or a slide in your building. It's not about any of that stuff. We have all of these things now, but in the early days, we had nails sticking through, the ceiling, and people had to walk through a dirt floor to get to the concrete area where we were working. I mean, it was horrible conditions. And our culture was as good, if not better then, as it would be with all of these perks. These are just perks that don't really matter for most workers. What we're talking about is a workplace culture that's about the people who are aligned with one another, who bring it, who have each other's back, and who give a shit about each other and about our clients and about the people in our community, people who are interested in this abundance mentality where we can all be in this together and the rising tide raises all boats. So for us, our culture is built around our opportunity as team members to do community service. We just hit, on January 18th, we hit 50,000 volunteer hours since we started tracking our hours 3 years ago. If we do the math on that, it's a gigantic impact in our community. If you assume, an hourly wage is worth the average or the median income of a person, it has millions of dollars of impact on our community. And it's something that we rally behind and get really excited about. We offer up space in our building free of charge for nonprofits for them to have their large meetings here. We have a big meeting space. And so we built out our space so that we can make it possible for them to have their larger meetings here. One of our favorite traditions is our Thanksgiving tradition, where we have one table, which has become more difficult as we've grown, and we'll see how we can keep up with that moving forward. But we put everybody at one giant table and have a Thanksgiving meal together. It's always the Thursday before Thanksgiving. And Souptacular is, I think most people around here would either say Thanksgiving or Souptacular is their favorite event. Souptacular, people make soups. There's a competition for the golden ladle, and people will bring everything together. I will say, though, that a couple of years ago, I think this is my opinion, that we jumped the shark a little bit with our Souptacular thing. It happens on Halloween every year. That's why you see the hats and everything, the crazy costumes in there. But one of our IT guys essentially melted a brick of Velveeta cheese and browned some hamburger, threw it together, called it taco soup, and he won the golden ladle that year. And ever since, the soup purists have been having some issues with the entries. But the bottom line is we are all in this together. I'm going to share this email with you. I think it's really indicative of the way that the culture creates meaning for people. I just randomly got this in my inbox one day. It says, "Hi, Jay. I was getting ready for work this morning, excited for the waffle breakfast. And it occurred to me that I look forward to quite a few things that are related to my job. I have a tendency to gush about FireSpring. I rave about the company, the work, the people, our clients, the fun things we do. Sometimes I get so enthusiastic, I feel like a cheerleader on speed. I am so eager to express my happiness and contentment to my family, friends, and neighbors. But I've realized that I've actually never told you, the person who made it all possible. This is my thank you. I am overwhelmed with gratitude for the opportunity to work at such an extraordinary company." So this is what happens when you don't leave culture to chance. This is what happens when you design culture with deliberate intention, and you do it in a way that drives people to love what it is that they do. And I'm going to finish with this. The average adult, we spend more of our waking hours at work than we do anywhere else. So why wouldn't we want to work in an environment that feeds us with love instead of sucking the love right out of us? I will never in a million years understand why so many people go to work with this expectation that, I'm putting my time in, and then I'll have an opportunity to maybe find a job that is more fulfilling down the road somewhere. Right now, I just got to put my time in. Life's too short. I think we should all be focused on finding that place, and reinstilling love back into the workplace where it belongs. So with that, I'm going to go on ahead and turn to Rachel and Hamza and see if there are any questions that have come through that we might want to address.
Wow, Jay, that was incredible. I'm honestly I got a little bit choked up when you shared that email. That's what an amazing thing to just receive in your inbox. So we have a couple questions that came in. Feel free if you have any to send them via the chat, and we'll pose them to you, Jay. And then if anyone has questions on video, go ahead and raise your hand. But I'll kick things off here with when employees came together and took pay cuts or deferred salary. That's incredible. What do you think caused that commitment?
Without question, the most important thing was the fact that as a leader, myself and the other leaders in our company at the time were incredibly vulnerable. We laid it out on the table, and we didn't try to hide anything. We didn't try to posture. We just expressed the depth of frustration, concern, and the concern. And you have to keep in mind that the thing that really got us into that point was that the board had been pushing to do a bunch of layoffs. And I kept pushing back, thinking that we're going to turn this corner. Because we have opportunities. My team knows this, and all of the team members knew that I was doing everything within my power to support them and their jobs and to keep them there. And so they felt a sense of commitment. The other thing that I will point out that since that day, and it's a really important part of our organization, is we're transparent with everything. We share financial numbers at our quarterly all team meetings. We include information that most companies probably would not include. So they feel like they're insiders in their own company instead of outsiders working inside a company. And I think that's really important. One last thing that I'll share on that is that when people make a commitment to be part of something and to believe in something, and in our case, even back then, we had a vision, we had a dream, we had an expectation that someday we're going to build a company that can do this, that's going to be able to give back to the community in meaningful ways. That was part of our discussion from day one. And people want to be part of something that's bigger than themselves. All of us humans want that. So whatever that is to each of us, sometimes we find it at work, sometimes we find it in other places. If there's a way for us to allow our team members to find that at work, then that's fantastic. That's what feeds me. And so back in those days, there was a sense of a shared vision and a sense that we can accomplish this together. People wanted to be part of it.
Awesome, thank you. Another one here, any tips on hiring the right people to keep up the culture you've created?
Hiring is such a difficult and important thing. And I will tell you, it's so different now than it was for us 10 years ago. We've always been known as a company that's a little bit progressive and with our culture, et cetera, et cetera. But up 5, 10, 15 years ago, we would post a help wanted ad and we might get 20 applicants for a position. And now we post one and we get hundreds of applications for positions. So it's a lot easier when you have people when you've built a destination workplace that people want to be part of. It certainly becomes easier because then it's just a matter of choosing, again, going back to what I said earlier, the best culture fit. And because we can train people's skills, for the most part. There are exceptions to that, clearly. If you're looking for a specific type of programmer on your engineering team, for example, you need to have somebody that's capable and skilled in writing that programming language. But I think the thing that we have focused on more than anything else at FireSpring in terms of finding and hiring the right talent is training our managers that are doing the hiring how to read and understand the culture fit part of it. Asking questions around culture. I'll give you an example. One of the best questions that we ask, because it shows a little insight into how people think, is because most people will come to an interview knowing what our 3 values are, and they're prepared to talk about them. So we'll ask which of our 3 values resonates with you the least, not the most, the least. And then so they'll like pause for a second and they'll think, and how they answer that question gives insight into their humility and whether or not they're going to fit in well with our culture. And then, of course, we also ask the flip side of that question, which one resonates with them the most. And we ask for actual examples of at points in time in their life when they've had experiences that feed into certain things. I highly recommend any works by Jeffrey Smart. If you've read any of his books on hiring, there's some great resources out there for asking really great interview questions and bringing people together. And I'll just say one more thing on this. We use a tool. A lot of companies use tools like profile assessment tools. The one that we've come to love and it's made a huge impact on our business is a tool called Culture Index. It works, a lot like the Myers-Briggs, like any of the DISC profiles. But Culture Index has a specific function and feature in it that makes it possible for us to establish, it's called a C job, and it allows us to define the type of person that we're looking for based on all of the other superstars we have in our company that fit this profile. This is the kind of person we want. And this assessment tool allows us to say, okay, these 30 or 40 applicants are naturally wired. Not a lot of us can do anything if we put our mind to it. But there are some people who are just naturally wired to do certain things, where it's not a fight or a struggle or a work for them to achieve it. And so we find this Culture Index tool helps us limit our focus down on the candidates that are going to be the best suited based on their natural wiring in a certain position.
Okay, well that's it for this one. Check out more Fishbowls exclusively for the Small Giants community at smallgiants.org.